Good evening. It's 5 o'clock. At this time, I'll call the work session for the Perry City Council for Monday, April the 6th, 2026 to order. We do have a quorum. Item 3 on our agenda this evening is citizens with input. Are there anyone here this evening that would like to address mayor and council at this time? Yes, ma'am. If you'd come forward and give us your name and address, we would appreciate it.
All right, good evening, everyone. Maggie Schuyler, Perry Area Chamber, 900 Carroll Street. I would just like to take a moment to say thank you so much to the City of Perry for allowing the 37th Annual Dogwood Festival to happen again this year. It's coming up soon, just in a couple of days in downtown Perry. And so I would like to officially invite all of you to the ribbon cutting, which will be on Saturday morning on City Hall lawn at 10 o'clock. So we would love to have you guys join us as we cut the ribbon. We're excited about another great year. Thank you so much for the Dogwood Dash 5K for allowing us to do that. We have over 400 registered runners. So be prepared. They're going to be running through downtown through the neighborhood. We have let the residents know by sending them a postcard, and about 35% of those runners are from out of county. So we're really excited to be able to bring that back. So thank you so much to the city for allowing us to do that, and to the police department for allowing us. I know I've had lots of conversations with Chief Everidge, so thank you so much. But as a special little thank you, the chamber would like to give you guys a Dogwood Festival medallion, each one of you, as just a little token of our appreciation for letting us have the Dogwood Festival.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we're also giving to the police department, fire department, and to Alicia for all of your partners. So thank you all so much. We appreciate your help.
Thank you. Wish you have a very successful Dogwood Festival. We'll be down here most of the weekend, I'm sure. So thank you. Anyone else that would like to address mayor and council this evening? Thank you. Item 4 are items for review and discussion. Item 4A is Community Development Department. 4A1 is Commodore Manor expansion proposal and request for support via Infill Housing Incorporated. Mr. Duffy?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, so I would, on behalf of the Perry Housing Team, our GIC group, the Georgia Initiative for Community Housing, we have received a request for concurrence to support a low-income housing tax credit application. We do have a guest presenter here from Affordable Housing Incorporated out of Macon, who wish to discuss a proposal with you all to expand the Commodore Manor facility. I believe the proposal is to add 8 additional units to that facility. But I'd like to invite Mr. Nash here, who has been working with the GIC group, and Councilman King as a part of that. So I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Nash and go through your slides. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Duffy. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time today. I brought a few items of material that I thought I'd pass out to y'all, just a little bit of information of who we are and kind of what we're looking to do here. And I'll pass that out around if that's all right.
This will change the slides. Awesome.
Hopefully I know how to operate this correctly. And as Mr. Duffy's kind of toting that around, just to explain in a brief introduction who we are, we're Infill Housing based out of Macon, Georgia, actually an affiliate of Macon Housing Authority. And we often get asked, if you guys are based out of Macon and doing work in Macon, what are you doing here? So, to explain briefly, I think we know that we've had a lot of progress within our community in Macon and kind of added to the housing community there by making available more housing and improving the quality of the infrastructure that we currently have in place. And we've made progress over the past 20 years, but as we all know, there isn't a housing crisis just in Macon, Georgia, or the state of Georgia. It's pretty national. And so maybe 15 to 20 years ago, we were approached by developers who were kind of out of Georgia and looking to have an impact within Georgia, and we partnered on 1 or 2 projects using the capacity of our housing authority at the time, and it's really made a difference in the community that's needed housing the most. And so it's kind of given us the idea, hey, since we've made wonderful progress throughout Macon, if we can have a similar impact in other communities in Georgia, given the capacity of our organization, we want to do that. And so over the past 10 years or so, we've been able to do multiple light-tech, affordable housing, and senior developments kind of throughout the state in Georgia, and it's really taken shape. As of recently, we've been working with, and I'll kind of speak to this slide that we kind of have up in front of you guys and maybe kind of go off banter just a bit as well. But, as we recently submitted a light-tech application, as it's called, and for you all who aren't too familiar with light-tech, it just stands for Low Income Housing Tax Credit. It was an incentive that was invented to really kind of fund affordable housing or senior housing developments throughout the U.S., and it's really kind of evolved, if you will, over the past 10 to 15 years, maybe 10 to 15 years ago, just really kind of taking shift and building more quality infrastructure. And so we submitted an application for the Commodore Manor, I believe, last year, and we were a bit shy of the pointage, given some of the scoring parameters that they had at the time. And so we've really been working with the Perry Community Housing, the local housing team, that really kind of tackling priorities for the city of Perry, given the growth that you all are experiencing and some of the priorities that you have as a community. And so kind of as I go through this slide, and feel free to stop me and ask any questions as I kind of barrel my way through it. But this kind of shows the comprised buildings as it sits now. And as Mr. Duffy kind of illustrated earlier, our goal is to add additional 8 units to this as it sits. It's funded by USDA, which is known as a Rural Development Program. Are you all able to hear me if I'm off mic as well? No? Okay. Maybe this will do it a little bit better so I can speak freely. So it's funded primarily by USDA, which is the Rural Development Agency and Program. And that they've been wonderful in adding a financial arm and getting these properties kind of built. So as I kind of go through it, the property was originally built in 1986, about 40 years ago, and was one of the more integral properties of that decade. And so as of recently, our goal with some of Perry's objectives, of them being adding additional housing, capitalizing on affordability to maintain rents, and as well as kind of tackle the revitalization and blight problem that you guys may be having within Perry. This is one of the solutions that we've kind of proposed and worked through as a team to kind of bring value to the local community. As Commodore Manor currently sits, this kind of illustrates maybe kind of what the units look like currently. As you can see, the rooms and flooring and the walls are a bit outdated. As I kind of scroll through the more pictures, it kind of portrays the kitchen, the bathroom, and some of the not only outdated, just kind of poor quality infrastructure of the units in which the families currently live. And so, as Mr. Duffy kind of highlighted, and our architecture or our architect kind of proposed or prepared this initial rendering, and I wish I could kind of go over and point to you guys, but I'll do my best to kind of illustrate with my hands from here. But there's a circular, from the circular buildings to the left, that illustrates kind of Commodore as it sits currently. And then if you see the Commodore Manor Apartments red pinpoint, above that kind of trails 3 buildings, and then to the left of the top corner, it's 2 buildings at the top. And these are examples of where we're kind of filtering where it would be most feasible to sit Commodore Manor with the 8 additional units. We're not entirely sure If it would be maybe one building, two buildings, but it would mimic the current architecture and structure to maintain the integrity of the community itself. And we would be working hand in hand with Mr. Duffy and the local housing team to kind of see what works best as it currently sits. I'll kind of go through this. Oh, and in addition to the USDA funding that kind of pours in helping us getting this developed and maintained, there's another layer of funding, which is called home funding. And we've recently submitted an application maybe about a week or two ago, in which we should hear back recently to kind of help and assist us with kind of getting the additional units built and improving the quality of the current community as it sits. This is an example of where we're aiming for the interior to look like, from updating the flooring, the walls, the kitchen, maybe expanding some of the units inside. It currently sits at, I think, 2 and 3 bedrooms. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I think the one beds may be closer to, I want to say 900 square feet. 2 beds a little bigger. With the 8 additional units that we would add, that would be about 1,150 square feet. 2 beds, 1,350. Maintaining the USDA rents or the lower rents as it sits. From our market study and Perry research, we see that I think the average 1 bedroom here, and if I'm not mistaken, it's maybe sitting around $1,000, $1,100 a month. 2 bedroom, maybe $1,300 to $1,400 a month. Currently, our goal is to maintain the low rents at Commodore Manor, which sit maybe for 1 bed, $650 a month, and then the 2 beds, I think, around $850, if I'm not mistaken. So the overarching goal is to not only improve the quality of the housing, but keep the rents affordable for the current residents and the new residents that may come with the growth of Perry. And this is just kind of speaking to what I mentioned earlier, as I know Perry's growing with infrastructure, new jobs, and kind of development throughout, and new residents are moving here. I know you guys are kind of doing a lot as a city to tackle the local problems, not from housing that come with the growth, but maybe transit as well. So, and this speaks to the earlier slide about us just improving the exterior, having more energy efficient improvements, interior upgrades, and just improving the systematic infrastructure from HVAC, water heaters, and other electrical and plumbing repairs. This is a kind of a preface of the community. As of now, most of you probably have driven by it or know exactly what the community is or what it looks like, and this is how it sits. The additional buildings we would add would kind of be to the right. It sits, maybe I'll go back to give you a better idea of what I'm referring to, but currently in this rendering, if you will, that's all on one parcel. And then the top 2 buildings at the very top of the rendering sits another parcel in which we have control of both parcels. It's appropriately zoned, so it would be no issue for us to add additional units to the additional parcel just to make more room for housing, if that's the goal. Now I'll kind of skate my way back to this slide right here just explains a little bit about the USDA, which is, you know, the rural agency, just to kind of simplify it a little bit. And then they help with maybe more so rural communities getting funding to get housing built and tackle some of the housing, other priorities that the community may have. And we really rely on them in some of the communities that do not have access to maybe major funds to bring additional housing into their local communities. This property currently has I think Section 515, which is a USDA financing, and I think for this property, maybe so I won't misquote the number, I think it's about $900K in debt, in which we would assume that working with the current financing structure, bringing in the LIHTC funds and the additional funds we would get from home. And so the overall goal, and I won't read through these, but the overall goal from just rehabilitation, building a sustainable community, being aligned with Perry's objectives and growth. We would steward and bring in management to make sure these things are properly managed over the next 25 to 30 years in accordance with the LIHTC program. That's typically the cycle of these. And then upon the 25 to 30 years cycle, we would then re-syndicate the project, bring additional credits to further improve the buildings, if you will. So in other words, just bringing in recycling the funding to cycle it back through the buildings to make sure that the current infrastructure is up to the most quality. And then the final point is just prioritizing neighborhood stability and social networks. And so, I'll make sure this is the last slide. Mr. Duffy, I'm not sure if we have the rendering, but maybe if we could show that, it'll encompass the 8 additional units that we're looking to build. Or, oh, really? Okay. And so maybe one of these buildings will kind of illustrate the point, but if you look to the building to the left, it'll pretty much mimic the current community as is, just making sure everything's updated accordingly, and then we have the most quality infrastructure there. I should have maybe put the exact rendering of what we're considering for the additional building, but all in all, our goal is really just to prioritize what's important for Perry, and from our understanding and association with the local housing team, that's finding avenues to build more housing, maintaining affordability, and I know that its overall goal to tackle and revitalize and maybe repurpose some of the parcels and lots that you guys have within Perry. I appreciate you all and your time, and feel free to ask me your questions if you have any. Thank you.
Any questions, council? I have a comment. We all know of the escalating costs of living, especially with housing. Affordable housing is getting harder to acquire, so I appreciate you reaching out and being interested in this property. This will include deep affordability also, correct?
Yes, sir.
For even that demographic that may not otherwise be able to afford some quality housing. So it will include deep affordability as well as LIHTC.
Yes, sir. Currently, as a structure, it's at 50 to 60% AMIs, which just stands for the average median income of a community. And you can target that from 30% to 80% AMI, but we're looking to maintain the deep affordability, as you mentioned, at 50 and 60% AMIs, and are open to extending that to where you guys see fit if you have any suggestions or recommendations on that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here. I take it these will all be rental properties, correct? They're not purchased, correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And then this is pretty extensive, impressive looking renovation to this whole thing. It almost looked like a total rebuild to me. How long do you anticipate that taking?
Currently, we have it projected for maybe 12 to 18 months. Typically, the way this would cycle, if it's something you guys want to see come to fruition, is we would receive our LIHTC awards and funds, and since that will be for 2026, which would be awarded later this year, and then from then we would proceed to closing on the financing to getting these rebuilt. So maybe, just for rough numbers, if construction started or closing started for Commodore Manor January of 2027, we would probably approximate an 18-month time frame, in which we would finish the entire project the next summer of 2028.
And then what happens to the people who currently live there? What do they do while the construction is going on?
So we would initiate just a temporary relocation program. So we would have them either live somewhere within the local community that's newly updated until we're finished their unit. They can stay in their unit if they like, or they can relocate to a new unit, their preference, or we would use maybe local hotels to some extent. We don't have that maybe a hard answer on exactly what we would use as of now. It's a preliminary conversation and kind of what we're looking to do. But from our past projects, we just kind of used additional units on the property or used local hotels nearby until their units was finished. Nothing changes for the tenants. They still get to live in their place. If anything, their rents stay the same. They get to live in an improved unit. So,
I guess my last just statement is if you could go back to the slide that shows the property with the new layout to it.
Oh,
the aerial one that was.
Yeah. Forgive me, I assume you're speaking about this slide.
That place really looks nice. I may want to move in there.
Yes, sir, that would be the goal. Just improving the interior shell, if you will, to make sure everything's revamped and new
Yeah,
for the current.
I want to
he
go
was
back to
looking
the
at
the whole property.
Oh, absolutely.
There we go. The new places you would build, are those top two buildings? Okay, and then the two on the entryway? Because there are no places on the entryway at this point. Correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. And that's kind of what I was speaking to earlier. I wish I can just kind of go over and illustrate for you. But so the Commodore Manor as it currently sits is, if you look to the left of the red pinpoint, there's a circle of buildings. That's the actual property. But to your point, as you just mentioned, the two buildings to the right of that on the top and bottom of the entryway, those units are currently not there. This rendering from, maybe if we start at the bottom building that's right above Commodore Manor Appointments, the red pinpoint, that's building 1. Go up above that, building 2. Above that, building 3. To the top, the very top, building 4, and to the left of that, building 5. Those 5 buildings are potential layouts of where we would sit the additional units. It wouldn't be at the, we weren't able to get an updated rendering prior to this meeting, so we were hoping just to show you this and show you what we were considering. But our final conclusion, unless you guys think otherwise, would be to use the additional parcel that we have at the very top, where the very top 2 buildings are sitting. So it would be building 4 and building 5 from my initial reference, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. My only concern was, and I've driven through this to take a look at it. That makes that driveway look really narrow, and I just wonder about the feasibility of if families were living in there, and there's a lot of cars that pass on 41 that travel relatively quickly too. And I was just thinking about, noise and stuff like that. Just something to think about.
Absolutely. And forgive us for this poor illustration, but the roadway is a lot wider than that. We kind of illustrated it a bit thinner than it actually is. So there's enough going through. If you guys have, maybe some of you have been on the property, but there's enough going through for a right side and left side lane, both entering and exiting the property. And for the top 2 properties at the very top of the rendering, we would have built an additional roadway, so that's easily accessible.
I have a question. Yes. Okay, back to the families being displaced during renovations question. How long would you assume a family would be displaced for the renovations in that one unit to take place?
That's a phenomenal question. We'd estimate, so it would very much depend on how often we plan to do a few of these units at a time, which we would have to kind of maybe dive deeper in depth on. But on average from our prior projects, maybe a few weeks just until the unit is renovated. So it could be 2 to 6 weeks. We'd aim for 3 to 4 weeks. But everything is covered for. We bring in movers to help them get moved to the temporary place that they would be staying. And then as soon as the unit is improved and ready to go, they're allowed access back in.
Well, the school teacher in me just wants to give you a heads up that there are lots of families with small children. When you look across Macon Road, the high school is right there. You constantly see walkers back and forth to school. I'm really concerned about the proximity of those. I'm pointing at something you can't see now. Sorry, I'm getting back.
No worries.
Those first 2 buildings, as you do that turn in, like Councilman Peterson mentioned, that is a very narrow drive as far as the amount of traffic. And that's a quickly traveled road there with a lot of pedestrians. We see a lot of challenges there already. So to have units that close to the road with the high probability of children being in them is highly concerning to me. So just think that through as far as what safety measures you might be able to add or incorporate. And the other thing is, from a school perspective, if we are displacing families, it sounds like, oh yeah, we can put them in a hotel in the area, but there's a lot of consideration that goes in with transportation to and from school that these parents do take advantage of every day. So if there's a way to prioritize the families that are able to stay, and maybe, I think you said maybe move into the new units while theirs are being renovated, et cetera, that would really help with school transportation and not uprooting too much these children that lay their heads on beds and go to school every morning.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. To your second point, our team will properly deliberate that and make sure we have the proper options, and we would cover those to make it convenient and accessible for the family. I don't think I'm doing a thorough job, so forgive me of explaining the first point. So I'm going to give it another shot again. So for the two buildings, and I'm kind of going off here, but just to speak to the point, the two buildings right here by the roadway, those properties will not be there. These were options like building 1, building 2, building 3, building 4, and building 5, kind of like in the initial roadway, just kind of circles around. So I agree with your point is valid. Those will not be by the roadway, so it's not causing a barrier to entry, if you will. Forgive me for stepping away from the mic. I was just iterating that the two buildings by the roadway, the entry roadway, will not be there. Those are initial location options that our architect presented. We didn't have enough time to get a final rendering prior to this meeting, but nevertheless, I just wanted to present it to you all to give you an idea of what we're kind of looking to do. Where the buildings will likely go is at the very top of the rendering. And so, to kind of reiterate it again, if you see the Commodore Manor apartments, where the building right above that, that's building 1 and building 2, right above that, the buildings right by the roadway, those will not be there. Those were initial conversation, locations in the conversation. And then the 3 buildings kind of circulating around that, those are the more realistic place points for the building. And what I'll do, and I apologize for this, what I'll do is I'll just make sure to get an updated rendering showing the roadway that we would add and where the new buildings would lay, just so it's properly illustrated. So forgive me for that. Yeah.
Mr. Duffy, this would be subject to plan review, and also will it not require a special exception request because it's more than 6 units?
We would definitely evaluate that. I think their first step is to successfully obtain the LIHTC tax credits, but it would come through plan review and be subject to any applicable zoning.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody was comfortable with that, we're not really reviewing that tonight. I think their only request of us tonight is to, approve their request for a 1 point or a letter of support for this. That's the only thing. I also have questions, and it's really none of my business, but I did not think that we were entitled to USDA financing in Perry any longer. I don't know that, but serving on the DCA board, I thought that had been removed, but maybe not for this type of coverage.
Yes, so phenomenal question. So the way for this current property, it's already financed with USDA financing. And so essentially what we would be doing, working with DCA, is just assuming the current debt structure. And speaking with them, it's allowable, and they're willing to work with us. But your point stands. It is a tricky process. So.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or concerns? So I think, as I understand it, the question is you're asking for us to approve a support letter to get the 1 extra point in their application for the LIHTC.
Yes, sir. I do not believe we need a formal resolution to that effect, but I believe concurrence would be requested, at which point we would present you, Mayor, with a letter for your consideration.
But would we not have to vote on that, Mrs. Newby, at tomorrow night's meeting for approving it? Yeah, so it'll have to come to us as a request to approve. So I would not want to ask the council to make a decision on something, especially since the first time they've seen it. So we'll add a supplementary tomorrow, and if the council is ready to vote, then we will take a vote tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, council members? Okay. Mr. Smith, any comments?
Comment, not really a question. 'Tis the season. that cities, across the state are approached by low-income housing tax credit project developers. We've had a number of them approach us in the past, and I think y'all's deadline is typically in May, something like that.
Yes, sir.
So I'm generally kind of weary about being brought into the process late in the game. However, with infill housing, I feel quite comfortable with the city moving forward with you as an organization. Having worked in Macon and known Bruce Gerwig quite well for a number of years.
Yes, sir.
I know that he had built this organization into something of a poster child, probably not the best word, but an exemplary organization that other organizations like this look towards and try and emulate. It's a nonprofit organization, so they're here. They're not looking at just complete, bottom line type stuff. It appears to me to be a very solid investment in the community in a dated facility. Looking at everything, I think it's a good opportunity for the city.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the information.
Thank you all for your time.
Item 4B is the Office of City Manager. 4B is a preliminary budget discussion. Mr. Worthington?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and City Council, I wanted to bring forward tonight a new concept known as the preliminary budget projections. This is a new concept this year that we hope to provide greater transparency earlier in the budget process than we have in past years. Generally, in the past, you guys have been brought the administration's proposed budget around May, and we wanted to go ahead and get it in front of you earlier than that this year. Essentially, where we are at is that we can, with some confidence, project most revenues and expenses, so we wanted to go ahead and get them in front of you. What the preliminary budget projection is not is administration's proposed FY27 budget. There are certainly some projections that we're still working on, and there's certainly some decisions that still can be made before we propose the finalized budget. Essentially, we're a little early in the process, but we do have most of the information that we can share with you, and that's what we're doing tonight. Some general statements about revenues as they're presented tonight. Taxes essentially held at FY26 levels. We're not building this budget projection based on increases to taxes or assuming new taxes coming in. We've looked at what we project to collect in the current year and rolled those forward to FY27. For fees, we have assumed growth at approximately 400 houses a year in most cases, but we have assumed no increases in any fees in this budget projection, sorry. And then also just wanted to point out that in any of the funds other than the general fund, there are no operating transfers assumed to help balance those budgets. Moving on, some general statements about expenses. What has been included are any known or mandatory cost increases that we feel confident that we can share at this point. Those include electricity costs. We purchase a lot of water from the county in our water fund. Those rates have gone up and we're growing. There's also contractual increases with ESG. We know what the debt service is at this point. And then our liability insurance, we actually got that quote last week, so I snuck it in this presentation. Didn't think I was going to have it, and then we got it. And then also any of the salary numbers that are in this presentation do include a 2% increase for all employees. Generally, what we have done in the past is always built in a 1% increase on July 1 and then a 1% increase on the employee's anniversary date with the city. On all the enterprise funds, we do include depreciation within these figures. However, what has not been included in any of the expenses that you see here are any departmental requests for funding or increased operational requests. And then just wanted to point out, because it's a fairly large number, the full budget for the Convention and Visitors Bureau is not expressed within these numbers. However, the Convention and Visitors Bureau budget is a wash. The expenses that we budget within the general fund are reimbursed to us from the CVB. So the only thing that's included in here are their salaries, because they do live within our payroll system and we project those for them. Next page, I won't spend a lot of time on here because I'm going to go into further detail for each of the funds, but I did want to include this because I think it's good for both the public and you all to see kind of a big picture of what our what our total budget is. Here, what I've shown, broken down into just revenues, expenses for each fund is, each fund's revenues and expenses as projected in the preliminary budget. Adding all of those up, the FY27 projected revenue with no fee increases is approximately $65 million. That's not on the screen. I added that up a few minutes ago. So going into each fund's revenues and expenses with a little more detail. This is the general fund. As you can see, as I've stated before, taxes are budgeted at the FY26 actual or projected collection. One of the things I've already mentioned is that under the miscellaneous line item, you'll see that goes down a good bit. It does not include the full CVB operating reimbursement, which is why that number is lower. It only includes reimbursement for their salary expenses. Another one that has gone down significantly is the other financing sources. What is included in that number is the reimbursement from all of the other funds for their PPFA debt service. What is not included is any capital lease revenue, because as I've stated before, these projections do not include any departmental requests, which would be those maintenance, capital, and rolling stock reimbursements. So there's no vehicles, no equipment, anything like that within these numbers that are projected tonight. Expense side. I apologize for the busy slide, but I didn't want to break this one up, and I could not get it any cleaner without getting, I think, too lacking in details. Some of the major expense reimbursements expenses that have been included in here are a $237,000 increase in electricity. That's simply because we know that both Georgia Power and Flint have announced increases, and as the city grows and we add things like streetlights, such things like that, our electricity costs grow up. E911 is a service that the county does for us. They have sent over their new contract increase. It's a $73,500 increase for the next fiscal year. Don't have a lot of control over that. And finally, over on the, I did mention that the salaries and benefits are included a 2% increase for each employee. That amounts to $1.1 million. Other items that are included in these expense figures. There are two positions that are frozen in these figures for FY27. One of those is the assistant city clerk that was recently vacated, and the other one is an equipment operator in the landscape crew. We are exploring ideas for our landscape crew about possibly maybe bringing in contracts or something like that, just any other options to reduce costs instead of hiring a new person. And that position is currently vacant. On the expense side in the general fund, I've already mentioned it, but I do want to point out again that there are no operating transfers out or subsidizations to our other funds. And once again, no departmental requests are included, which includes replacement of vehicles, replacements of equipment, all of that type of stuff. In the Fire Protection Fund,
that is not specifically the 2% increase. That includes, or does not include a number of filling of police.
It does. So built into the FY26 projections were some vacancies. We had some vacancies while we were building the FY26 budget. So we went ahead and built in those vacancies knowing that they wouldn't be filled throughout the whole year of FY26. We are currently fully staffed over in the police department, so we do not feel confident projecting any kind of savings in the police department for vacancies.
Thank you.
Yes. In the Fire Protection Fund, once again, moving forward, no fees have been assumed for any of the other funds. There are some reductions in here I wanted to point out. Other financing sources does go down from $1.5 million to $64,000. Those are tied to two things. The capital lease of a new apparatus. We did buy a new apparatus last year for $796,000. So in FY26, there was a budgeted lease revenue in the same amount, approximately $800,000. And then in FY26, we did transfer in $648,000 to the fire protection from the general fund. I have not put that subsidization in the projected numbers. On the expenses, the 2% salary increase amounts to $157,000 increase for the fund. And then if you look at fixed assets, you see that $796,000 is not included under the expenses. So for Hotel Motel Fund, Generally, what we budgeted was what we project to collect in FY26 based on current collections from the hotels. We do track each hotel separately so we can get a good idea how much revenue is coming in. Want to point out that there are 2 hotels that haven't been open very long. One of those is the Hilton Garden Inn. We've actually only got 1 month of data from that one. And then the other hotel is the one out at the fairgrounds. We've only got a couple months worth of data from them. So we projected those fairly conservatively. Just wanted to point that out in case in the mid-year budget, if I come forward and say, hey, the revenues are doing really well, that could be why. It's because we're projecting those intentionally low so that we don't build a budget that's too high. Another hotel to point out is the Hampton Inn. It's closed for renovations right now. So we have proposed 0 revenue coming in from the Hampton Inn. On the expense side, just wanted to point out that Hotel Motel Fund is very regulated in what we can do with these expenses. General purpose expenditures in the Hotel Motel Fund can amount to 37.5% of the total revenues that come in, and those dollars are transferred automatically to the general fund as they come in. 43.75% is considered tourism, convention, and trade show promotion. That amount has to be spent by the CVB. So each month when the money comes in, we calculate how much 43.75% is, and that check goes to our CVB, our designated marketing organization. And then finally, the last category is your tourism product development. That amounts to 18.75%. That amount has to be spent on a physical attraction within the city limits. It doesn't necessarily have to be capital. It can be operating, but it is designated that 18.75% of that money has to be spent on that. Next fund, water and sewer. This one I could not get on. I couldn't get anything else on this slide, so this is simply the revenue and expense projections. So I'll move on to the next slide. For our revenues, once again, there are no fee increases assumed, although I do have to caveat that. The only exception to the no fees assumed is the sewer connection fee, because you all have already approved an increase starting January 1, 2027, which is halfway through the fiscal year. So that sewer connection fee will go from $2,500 to $5,450 on January 1, 2027. That increase is built into these revenue projections. Your base fee, connection fee, and consumption fees are assumed in this data to not change. And we're assuming about 4% growth, and that comes from the 400 homes and approximately 10,000 accounts that we currently have. Major expense adjustments. Big one of the biggest ones here is going to be purchase of county water. We purchase approximately 35 to 40% of the water that we sell in our sewer system. We don't produce it ourselves. We purchase it from the county, turn around and sell it to our customers. The county has already announced that on July 1, they're going to go up 25%. And in the areas that we buy the water is some of our bigger growth. I do want to point out that 25% actually comes on the heels of an increase last year where they went up 36% on their cost. And they've already announced that July 1 of 27, they will go up again. And from then on, they've announced that their water rates will be tied to CPI. So this is a line item that has gone up. It's going up again this year. It will go up tremendously next year, and then from then on be tied to CPI. So that's going to be a tough one that we have to monitor and continue watching. Yes, sir.
Do we know why the county is raising their water rates 3 years in a row and then tying it to CPI?
I don't want to speak for them, but I know at the time they had not raised their rates, and I want to say 12 years. So they went 12 years without raising a rate. So instead of doing incremental rates, they had to catch up essentially. And also, they've got some big revenue, or some big capital projects they're having to fund as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Worthington, do you know how much next year is tremendous?
I have it on a chart, but it's not in front of me. It does go down. It's not 25% again. It's either 20 or 15. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'll shoot an email out before the end of this meeting, though, because it's on my computer.
Thank you.
Electricity, once again, assuming it goes up, are projecting that it will go up $181,000 in the coming year. That's because of increases that have already been announced from both Flint and Georgia Power. And also just as we grow, we produce more water, it takes more electricity, treat more sewage, all of that. The operations of the A.E. Harris Wastewater or Water Reclamation Facility. In the FY26 year, we only projected a portion of the year because we knew it wasn't going to be operational the full year. In FY27, we're assuming it will be fully operational for 12 months, so we have to increase it. We were increasing that projection by $385,200. And then finally, one of the big drivers of the water fund is our contract with ESG Operations Infomark. They operate all of our water and wastewater and actually gas as well, but all of those operations for us. They have proposed a 2.6% increase in their contract, which is tied to CPI. That's one of the lowest increases they've ever brought forward to us. Generally, it's more in the 5 to 6% range, and that amounts to a $294,000 increase. Moving on to the, I don't know what I did there. Moving on to the gas fund. The city makes its money in the gas fund from our base fees and our distribution charges. The amount that we actually pay for the gas is actually passed on directly to our gas customers. So there are some assumptions within this fund that those supply charges could go up, but they are passed on to our customers. We have no control over that. The rate that we buy the gas from our supplier is the rate that's passed on. Our distribution and base charge is assumed here at no fee and no increase to those two charges. I do want to point out two things really. One thing that's not built into this, but we know it's going to have to come up, is there's some known capital expenses that we're going to have to do in the gas fund, approximately $100,000 to $115,000. This is a decree from the Public Service Commission that we have to do some upgrades to our regulator stations. We've already agreed to do that, and we'll need to do that over the coming year. We're assuming that will come from fund balance in the gas fund. And the solid waste fund, once again, no fee increases assumed in these numbers. However, I did build in growth of 400 new accounts throughout the year. In our other financing, that number does go down from $706,000 to $65,000. Wanted to point out the drivers of that. Number one is there's no transfer in from the general fund. If you remember in FY26, it was a conscious decision to not go up on our solid waste rates. So we subsidized this fund from the general fund in the previous fiscal year. On the capital lease, we did purchase a new knuckle boom truck, actually in FY25, but we got the revenue from the lease on that one in FY26. It was just the timing of the purchase there, so that goes down $242,000. And then we also sold an old knuckle boom truck in this fund in the previous fiscal year in the amount of $54,000. So that's why we're going from $700,000 down to $65,000. The expense side, one of the big drivers of the expenses within the solid waste fund is our contract with Ryland to pick up both toters and dumpsters. That contract is structured so that we actually pay per customer per month. So as customers come on from new growth, we actually pay more. And I've assumed 400 new customers in the fiscal year. That contract also has a clause that on November 1st of each year, the price that they charge us goes up what CPI was in the previous year. Within this model, I have assumed a CPI increase of 5% starting November 1. So that number could be lower, could be higher. I just thought it could not be higher, I'm sorry. It's capped at 5%. That is why I put the 5% in here to be very conservative. We also have some employees within this fund. They're the ones that actually operate the knuckle boom truck that pick up yard waste in bulk. The 2% increase has an effect of $63,000 on the fund. Did want to point out one thing that is not included in any of these numbers is a clause within the contract that as diesel prices rise, they are able to charge us a surcharge. Anytime that diesel prices rise above $4.50 a gallon, and there's some governmental data that's produced and that's what's referenced, they can start charging a surcharge. Essentially, for every quarter above $4.50, or starting at $4.50, they can charge us a 2% surcharge, and then for every quarter, it goes up another 2%. So at $4.75, they'll actually charge us 4%. At $5, they'll actually charge us 6%. $5.25, it'll go up to 8%, and so forth. As of March, we were at $4.91, so we do expect a 4% surcharge coming on to us, and that amounts to approximately $8,400 a month at 4%. So you're looking at maybe $4,000 to $4,200 a month surcharge that is currently unbudgeted but is within the contract that we're going to have to figure out how to cover. And a fund that, pointing out, is already being subsidized because it's not covering its own cost. Stormwater fund, probably one of the most even funds here. I've assumed no rate increases, but growth of 400 homes. And there's really not a whole lot to talk about in that fund, other than it's essentially breaking even. It's a little bit to the good. Moving forward over the next month, administration will be working with department heads a little more. We'll be looking at the numbers, refining them, tuning them up, getting them as we see them. There's some big decisions to be made on what will and won't be funded. We'll be working with you all as you see fit to make those decisions. And then on May 5th, we are scheduled for the city manager to produce the city manager's proposed budget for FY27. On the May 18th and 19th work session and council meeting, their department heads and all of our outside organizations that request money will have the opportunity to present in front of you why they made the requests they did and so forth. On June 2nd, we are on the calendar scheduled to have our public hearing, which is required by law when you pass a budget in the state of Georgia, and our first reading of the ordinance. And then your second reading of the ordinance and adoption is June 16th. I will point out that by state law, we have to have a budget by July 1st. There is some, if we do not do that, the state stipulates that 1/12 of our budget becomes our monthly budget until we pass the budget. And that is very much frowned upon. With that, I'm open to questions. I did provide some more information for you all. If I ask what you will, if I do not have the answer, I'm happy to get it to you.
Okay. Questions?
First of all, thank you so much.
Yeah.
The way that you laid this out was so clear, and it was very helpful to have your notes along with each fund.
Sure.
So thank you very much for doing that. I love the way that you're giving this to us in advance.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the transparency with it. I appreciate the timeline and you guys like setting aside time to work with us as your council for that. So thank you very much. I do have a couple of questions. So if we could go back to the solid waste piece, and I'm sorry, this may just be a new girl question, so forgive me. But I don't know, this probably isn't even the right question, the right time for this question, but I guess I'm confused as to why are we the pass-through for solid waste with Ryland? Like in other cities, like my daughter just bought a home in a new place, right? And so if she wants her trash picked up, she contacts the company that manages the trash, and that bill goes to them. She works with them. The city is not involved in that. So why do we choose to have management and be the middleman with Ryland? Do we get a better contract price that way? Or, I mean, what's the thought process there? Because here's what I'm hearing. It's costing more for my trash at my house to get picked up every week, right? And because of the contract with Ryland. So as I get aggravated that things are going up as a homeowner, I'm really aggravated with Ryland. I'm not aggravated with the city. But because I'm paying it in my city bill, the city's the one I'm blaming, right? So what's the explanation there?
So I think there's some a little institutional knowledge there. I don't know if the city of Perry has tried doing direct billings from the provider before, but my understanding is that the city wanted to be able to control the process of setting up the accounts more. They wanted to be able to have the accountability of making sure that things like the dumpster or the trash was getting picked up when it should, that the proper customer service was being provided when people called in and had issues as far as, hey, my trash doesn't get picked up. There's the thought process that the city can provide a better service for that than someone like Ryland can. There's also the other component of solid waste fund isn't just Ryland. It's the crews that pick up the bulk waste and the yard waste. So that's also paid for out of your solid waste.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. But there certainly are some cities that you bill it directly from the company who's providing it. That was a conscious decision at some point by the city that we're going to bring that in-house. Now, Ryland would charge more if they were charging for that, if the bill was going through them, because then they'd have to do all the billing and all that. That's an expensive.
They get the calls too when their trash didn't get picked up.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That makes sense. Thank you. I knew there was an explanation there. I just wasn't confident about what that was. So
sure.
Thank you very much for that. And then I guess I just have some other questions. When I look through the various funds, I think we all know about debt service for the water sewer fund. We've beat that horse. But when I look like stormwater or solid waste fund debt service, like how do I know what that debt service is, how much we're looking at, like total debt, et cetera? Like where can I find that information? Like the gas fund has a debt service of $36,000 and some odd change. The solid waste debt service $238,000. So what is that for?
The city publishes that each year within our audit. There is a schedule in the audit that has all of our current outstanding debt. However, I can provide how we came up with these numbers is a spreadsheet within one of my many spreadsheets that we actually show the full debt service for each fund. Within the gas fund, there's two sources of debt. Other financing at the 287 down there, that's actually going to be PPFA debt, where we recently built a expanded gas line. I say recently, geez, it's been 5 or 6 years now. We expanded our gas line around Heston Lake. That's the main gas line that brings gas into our city. PPFA paid for that. On the actual debt service line item itself, that $36,000 is going to be made up mainly of lease debt on our capital, our rolling stock capital, so trucks, equipment, things like that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Those are shorter term, 3 to 10 year leases, whereas the PPFA is the 30-year bond.
Okay, and that's what's under the other financing is the PPFA?
Other financing is under all the funds is other than general fund is generally going to be your PPFA debt service. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. And then last question, for the hotel motel tax fund, so there are no salaries that come out of that fund?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Oh, yes, there are. I'm sorry. In the TPD, where it says Department of Public Works, there are 2 employees there. The downtown ground maintenance crew is paid out of this fund.
Okay, and is it allowable to take additional salaries out?
As long as they
fall within tourism product development.
That's correct.
Tourism, convention, and trade show. Like as long
well,
as
the
they
TCT
go
has to be
categories.
spent by. But yeah. So the only one that we would be able to control is the TPD category. The TCT under state law, that $729,000. We have no choice. It has to go to a DMO. We are not allowed to spend that money. A DMO.
Right,
yes,
but we do have the 37.5% under general purpose that goes straight into our general fund.
That's
right?
correct.
So
yes,
is
ma'am.
that how we earmark funding for our CVB director?
No, the CVB director is coming out of that TCT dollars. We do pay it out of the general fund, but then the CVB immediately pays us back. So there's a line item, and there's a revenue and an expense that wash in the general fund.
In the TCT, that's where the
Correct.
salary comes from.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
her salary showing up in general fund is really reimbursed through the 43% that we don't get to control that goes to CVB.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Got you. Okay, that helps. Thank you. I'm sorry. Getting all these moving pieces is exciting. So thank you.
I'm just happy I can answer it. So.
You did a great job. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
Well, let me add my words of appreciation for laying all this out. This is a lot of work, I know, and a lot of paper too, but glad it was sent, most of it electronically. Anyway, I had a couple questions. First on the general fund.
Okay.
Particularly the revenue side of that. And for line 31 there, I noticed that last year the taxes, which is, I understand, the sum total of property tax, franchise, insurance premium, occupational, and alcohol taxes, all of those are rolled into one number there.
Yes, sir.
That's 20,000. In looking at that, the difference between the previous year, 2025, and what we've got in 26, that tax base grew by 1.7, almost $1.8 million.
Mm-hmm.
But from 26 to the projected 27, the growth is down to 287,000.
Yeah, so one of the things I caveated at the beginning of this presentation is I just rolled forward the current year's projected collections. I've assumed no growth in the revenue base for this year, or for this preliminary.
Oh, for the taxes.
Yes.
So chances are there would be, we could say, an expected revenue of close to $1 million if we add all that up.
We've never, as a city, been comfortable putting a number on that because we're so reliant on, say, the county doing the assessments and everything else. But
right,
yeah, there will be some number of growth there because as we add 400 houses each year, those get added to the tax digest. Yes, sir. There will be growth, and we've just never budgeted any number for that. Typically, what we do is we hold it back, and at the mid-year budget amendment, we bring it forward and present to you what we project, and at that point, we decide how we want to spend that.
Right. And I was just looking for ballpark there. I'm not trying to state.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing. Second thing, on the charges for services there under general, what are the services again?
A lot of those are going to be things like rental of all of like, say, the event center, things like that. I know that's not $7 million, but that's the first one that came to mind. There's also all of the charges for services for what community development does as far as building permits, stuff like that. That would be in that category. I can gladly get you a list of what all is in there, but I do not have it.
Well, I was just looking, just was curious, and that helps to understand that one. Investment income, is that interest we draw then as
yes,
we...
sir. Interest on cash as it sits in the bank.
Money
yes,
that's been, we're not spending it yet.
Yes, sir. And generally what we do is we have our money at our bank. We have a money market account, so we're earning a higher interest than a normal savings account or checking account. And then any excess funds that we don't necessarily have to use, on a weekly or monthly basis, we put over in Georgia Fund 1.
I understand. I did, and you may have answered this before, but it kind of went too fast for me on line 38, miscellaneous. The miscellaneous has gone from over $1 million down to what, 792,000, and now it's down to 523,000. Is that
the over $1 million? I'm assuming you're looking at FY25.
That was in 25. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I don't have that number in front of me, but from 26 to 27, the reason that it went down is the big one is the CVB operating reimbursement. Like I said, the city pays all of their expenses. We send them an invoice once a month, and they reimburse us for that expense. So that reimbursement is a revenue that currently does not show their full operating expenses. All it shows is their salaries.
So that's also potential additional revenue that could potentially come in.
It would come in, but it would be washed with an expense line item. Any revenue that's shown there is also washed by associated expense.
Okay, and then finally, under the general fund, the other financing sources.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even find that in some of the past audits, but
so the big
what
one
is
on
that?
the big driver of the other financing sources is the reimbursement from all of the other funds for the PPFA debt service. So PPFA is ultimately is a liability of the city itself, not a revenue bond against the individual enterprise funds. So according to our auditors and GASB standards, the actual debt expense has to be paid, or debt service has to be paid out of the general fund. So the debt service in the general fund includes all of PPFA's actual payment to Bank of New York Mellon. To get reimbursed in the general fund by those other funds, they do a transfer in or an other source of revenue. So the general fund pays all of the debt service. We look at the projects and go, okay, well, 35% of the projects were for fire, so fire is going to reimburse the general fund 35%, or water, 50% of the projects that debt service paid for was ultimately a water project, so water needs to reimburse 50% of the debt service.
So that sounds like that's really an expression of city debt. Is that correct? Even though it's coming from all these different sources?
Well, this is the revenue coming in. I would say that the expression of the city debt is over on the next page. If you look down at debt service, where we have $3.6 million, $3,657,000.
Okay.
Vast majority of that is your PPFA debt service.
Right.
There's some smaller leases and such in there as well for general fund assets. But
Okay.
vast majority of that is going to be your PPFA debt service.
Okay. On the all fund summary, I just did a little arithmetic, and I noticed if we took all of the revenues and subtracted away all of the expenses, it's easier to subtract the revenues from the expenses. It's sort of a delta there of $2.5 million in debt. So if it was done today as is, we'd have to figure out how to come up with $2.5 million. Would that be correct?
We would have to figure out we would have to come up with the delta of the revenues minus the
Yes.
expenses. Yes, sir. I haven't done the math on that $2.5 million yet. So.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm just making sure I understand all this. And then I did notice if we took all the depreciations that are listed here, that's 2.3 million. So that almost matches that negative delta there. And we do have, as growth takes place, some of these taxes will increase. So, okay, thank you. I think that answers that. I did have a question on fire fee as well. The charges, this is what I didn't understand. In 26, the charges for service are almost $4 million, and that grows by a little bit there for the preliminary. How did you calculate the number of 4,100,600?
I can tell you it's tied to an assumption of 400 new accounts that are paying the fire fee.
Because when I do the 400 accounts, that's an additional 108, almost 119,000. This seems to be less than that. 105,000.
I would say that you don't get 400 new homes on July 1st. You get approximately 36 or 33 new homes on July 1st. So you have to build that in.
Okay.
You don't get all the growth at the beginning of the year. You get the growth spread out throughout the year.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
that's a good point. That's a good point. Thank you. By the way, do we know how many people pay the fire fee?
Not off the top of my head, but yes, we can get that information to you.
I mean, I think about stuff like that. How many property taxpayers do we have? I mean, there's residential, commercial, industrial.
There are some really awesome charts in the back of the audit, which at this point I know are approximately a year old, but they do have a lot of the statistical data.
They deal with that?
Yes, sir.
Well, maybe I'll get you to direct me to that
Yes, sir.
later. I'm interested. And
Like I said, I know at this point they're as of June 30th, 26 or 5, so they're going on a year old. But that is in my mind when we produce our most definitive answer on those questions. And then throughout the year, we can always there are times when we track that for sure.
On the water sewer fund, a couple questions here. Do we still estimate that the average customer pays $981 a year for their water sewer? That was what we used for Raftellus. I pulled that.
Yeah,
out.
we're still using
Is
the same assumptions when we do planning. So.
And then I didn't in going through the expenses here, or I'm sorry, in going through the revenues, I didn't see where the connection fee.
It's within
Is
that.
that within the
it's built into
charges?
the charges for services. Yes, sir. It's in the 34 category.
Okay. How much are we estimating for that?
$1,590. $1,590.
$1,000,000,009. Okay.
1,590,000.
Okay. Thank you. All right, and then Does that chart, by the way, in the back of audit, does it reflect how many customers we have that pay water, sewer fees and things like that?
I believe it shows connections, which you can be extrapolated out to that. Yes, sir.
Okay. Didn't have any question. Gas is like one of the best funds we have going, it looks like.
Yes, sir. I did, on gas, I'm sorry to take over your questioning. Did I mention the line locate crew earlier? I have a note here. So one thing that we've done as part of this is obviously we take a look at all of our operations each year. Our line locate crew, which is an ESG contract that we have, is currently paid out of the water fund. Costs us approximately $79,000 a year for that crew. And speaking with ESG and getting a better understanding of how that operation actually works, those are actually a gas fund crew. Those guys are gas people that also go out and do line locate for us. One of the big reasons for that is if you're a water or a sewer person, you're allowed to do water and sewer locates, but you're not trained to do gas. You're not allowed to do gas. You're not certified to do that. If you're a gas person who's certified to do gas locates, you are allowed to do water locates as well. So one thing that we're possibly going to bring forward as part of the final recommended budget is moving that contract out of the water fund and into the gas fund. As you can tell, the water fund is a little lacking, as you've mentioned, compared to the gas fund. So that is one of the shifts that we're looking at doing to help balance all the funds a little better.
Well, and I noticed our projection of that is like 300,000 to the good, and you mentioned maybe 100,000 for some
a capital
project.
Yes,
a capital project. So both that would also be good and helpful. And then solid waste has already been covered there. Okay, that concludes my questions. I thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Other questions, other concerns? Yes, sir.
Mr. Worthington, on page 2 of your memo, under Water and Sewer Fund, it says ESG operations. I can just read it to you. They're requesting an increase of $294,800, which equates to a 2.6% increase based on CPI. Your wording there says, are we contractually obligated to that? Because it says they're requesting the increase. So,
how would you describe that?
If we want to continue with their service, then yes. We are obligated to accept that increase. Basically what they're doing is they're proposing to the city an increase of that amount to operate our utility systems. Each year we go through a process where we renew the contract with them. It's an annual thing, and that's usually done in August, September timeframe. Runs through you all and then runs through Ms. Newby's office. So yes, if we want to continue with ESG Infomark, it would require that 2.6% increase.
is that something we might want to look at sometime? I mean,
I will tell you that going into this budget season, staff had some very tough conversations with ESG Infomark. As Mr. Worthington mentioned, in the past we have seen usually anywhere from 4 to 6% increases on an annual basis. We were very pleased that they came back to us with what we thought was a very moderate increase for this fiscal year. So they sharpened their pencils and provided us with what we think is a fairly competitive increase on that. We have looked at this stuff before, generally in regards to bringing in-house, going out of bid, that sort of thing. However, we feel that the level of service provided by ESG Infomark is really just excellent. They have economies of scale that we would not be able to take advantage of. They've really bailed us out of some serious situations in the past with our utility services. They bring to bear a lot of expertise and professionals in the field. And really, my favorite thing, we've never really had to use it, but there's a 100% compliance guarantee with all state and federal regulations as it relates to the operation of water and wastewater and gas services. So, if they were to mess up, essentially, and something that they did caused us to run afoul of compliance matters, they would have to cover the cost, including and up to, attorney's fees and that sort of stuff. So, it's a good relationship. And administration's pleased with the increase that they presented to us this year.
very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Beg your forgiveness, I did have one question, and Mr. Smith reminded me of seeing his face. On the water fee, there was a number out there that said the operations of Harris was in the neighborhood of 385,000 on one of your initial slides.
An increase of 385.
An increase.
Yes, sir. Because
okay.
what that accounts for is right here. That accounts for a full year's worth of operations. Now, I do want to point out this is the actual line item operations. This is the cost of supplies, the cost of chemicals, the cost of electricity, the cost of utilities, dumpsters, and such like that at A.E. Harris. In the 26 budget, we had only built in, I think it's either 3 or 4 months of operations. I don't remember off the top of my head. What this does is it takes out and says, okay, we believe A.E. Harris is going to be operational for a full 12 months this fiscal year. So this is the amount that this increase over last year.
And I say this because Mr. Smith, we had talked, or we had discussed operations of Harris at 727,000 a year. That ring any bells? And I was just trying to reconcile what the difference between the two numbers.
We did. We looked at it. I think it was around 750 or so.
Yes, something like that.
The number that was included as part of the mid-year actually funded, 4 months or 5 months or something like that. So it wasn't the full amount. So that's what the 385, in addition to whatever was in the budget, should be about 750 or so. I think that's what's in the base budget right now.
Okay. All right. And then just maybe 2 items for a workshop later at some point. I think it'd be interesting to see the big contracts at some point, review the contracts, because I don't really get into the weeds of those contracts, but when I find out we're signed on to a contract that obligates us at a certain level to increase whatever the payment is or the surcharges or something like that. I mean, that's my fault for not digging into the weeds on that, but there's probably some highlights that'd be helpful to know that, and especially going forward as new contracts come up. I'd like to be a lot better at, recognizing what those are more up front. Does that make sense?
Are there specific contracts you would like to review? We can certainly get those to you.
Yeah, just to know what we're doing. So that's the other thing is on the water fund. I wish at some point we could separate out, get a number for the operating expenses versus the debt we're paying. Because I think for the operating expenses, we want to get to the place where our customers are paying a fee that covers the operating expenses. And I know because we're starting a new plant, that's not going to happen this year or next year. But if we could do that, and then we've got the debt that we're trying to pay with the connection fee, and we are paying some of that, I think, obviously, with the rate that is being charged as well. So I'd like to see that at some point separated out so we can see what that looks like. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Worthington. That was very thorough. We really appreciate the work that you and the finance group did to put all this together, and we'll look forward to the various meetings we have planned to continue the discussion. Item 4C is the Economic Development Department. 4C1 is the Main Street Advisory Board quarterly update. Ms. Hartley?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, we wanted to share with you all a quarterly update just of the activities that the Main Street Board has been working on since January and what we're looking forward to in Q2. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our Main Street Advisory Board Chairman, Ms. Valerie Moore. And I'll quit for you if you don't talk.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, I appreciate your time tonight. And there will be no numbers in this. I know. But because I am a former high school teacher, I'm going to do just a tiny bit of review because I'm not comfortable that I want to make sure we all know the same facts about Main Street and kind of how we got to where we are today in Perry. In about 1977, community leaders across this whole country noticed a really disturbing fact, and that fact was that there was a drastic decline of downtown commercial districts across the country, northeast, south, and west, bigger cities, small towns. It was everywhere. And, we can go back and look at history and talk about why that was, malls, et cetera, et cetera. However, this was disturbing because downtowns have always been the lifeblood of communities. Heck, it's where, if you go back to the earliest settlements, it's where settlements were born. There was always a community center, and those were dying. So this group of leaders across the country got together and thought, what can we do? We've got to save our downtowns. How can we do it? So kind of a grassroots campaign was started in 1977. By 1980, this grassroots campaign was ready to unveil itself as Main Street America. And when this was unveiled, they reached all the states, and Georgia was one of the very first ones to sign on. Georgia was like, man, we need this program. Our downtowns are struggling. And so since the very beginning of the program, Georgia's been on board. Flash forward to about 2010, and Perry became a Main Street community. Now, you don't get to just call up the state and say, hey, we'd like to do this. There's paperwork, there's an application, you kind of have to prove yourself. But Perry did that. So now for, 16 years, like I said, I'm not a math person, it's about 16 years we've been a Main Street community. And that brings us to today. Of all the boards and commissions that you appoint or oversee, Main Street is really unique in that we have this really small footprint. That's all we have to concentrate on. And sometimes when we bring things to y'all, we have to remind ourselves that y'all have this much broader view than we do. But our mission is absolutely to protect, preserve, and make sure that downtown Perry is as vital as it can be. So many of you know what we've been doing this last quarter because y'all came to Welcome Park when we did our instruments. You were here when we finally got our speaker system up and running. But we just want y'all to know, first of all, that we are so appreciative that every time we come to y'all, you listen to us. You don't always give us exactly what we want when we want it. But you know what? We'll be back. But we have some wonderful relationships with other boards and in Perry. We have a great working relationship with the Downtown Development Authority and the CVB. We have also learned how to kind of work in tandem with the Historic Preservation Commission. We meet on a Tuesday. We see a COA. We meet on a Thursday, the following Tuesday they meet, and then they approve or not, and we give them a recommendation. So anyway, we've been developing all these relationships, and we're just really proud of what we've done. Alicia has to turn in monthly reports. The Main Street program, statewide and on the national level, is data-based. We can't just send them something and say, oh, we're doing great down here. No, they want to know our numbers. And a lot of it is based on what council does. And it's not only the finances that y'all put into the downtown, that's important too, but how involved y'all are and how receptive y'all are to our ideas. And then once a year, we have an annual assessment we have to complete. Every 3 years, we go to an in-person assessment. And we just did that this past January. We took the city manager with us, we took Holly with us, Alicia, and Trish Cossert and I went. And the reason Trish needed to go is she had been the chair for years. And she asked not to be the chair anymore. And so I got it. But Main Street is really, they care about why the chair is no longer the chair. They like to see that continuity. They like that our board members stay active and stay involved. We have training we have to go to every year. We're not allowed, we have to attend, is it 75 or 80%? 75% of our meetings every year. I mean, all this has to be turned in. So we just feel like we have a great board. We have young and old, we have male and female, we have black and white. We all feel like we kind of bring something different to the table. We've really learned to work well together. We're proud of what we're doing, and we just want y'all to be proud of how wonderful this downtown is. You know, sometimes when you see it every day, you kind of take it for granted. Go to other towns about the size of Perry. Look, I'm not going to call anybody name, but some of them are close. Look at the empty storefronts. Look at what that downtown looks like, and then look at ours. And you'll just realize what great things are being done here. Okay. You can see on here kind of what some of the things that we have done. I mentioned the in-person assessment, Welcome Park, and the grant program that y'all so graciously fund for us that then we get to disperse. And then here's what we've got coming up. We do a drink and dine promotion. We've done it a couple of summers in a row. The reason we highlight summers, you know, for March, April, May, we'll stay busy in downtown. You know, nothing is better for us than when the city has the International Festival or the Chamber has the Dogwood Festival and other groups are bringing people into our downtown because we get to use all that data in our reports. But by the summer, when the dog days hit and people go on vacations, downtown can struggle a little bit. So we look for ways to, you know, go out and eat, save your receipts, and we kind of reimburse you some in downtown dollars. But in tomorrow, we're actually taking the city van or bus or whatever it's called. We're all going to Dublin for training, because like I said, we have to have annual training. And we've got our wine tasting coming up. I think one of the things, and this is what the state kind of demands of us, we look at what we do, we decide what's working, what's not working anymore, why isn't it working, and we're not scared to change something or stop it, you know, because we do fundraising too. Y'all give us money, but then we provide money to fund some things for ourselves. So I think that wraps it up. If y'all have any questions, I'll try to answer what I can, and if I say something that's incorrect, Alicia will stop me. But anyway, I do greatly appreciate your time tonight.
Questions, council members, comments?
I do. First of all, thank you for being willing to chair. That is a huge responsibility, and the work that y'all do is so appreciated. And thank you for always inviting us. That was so cool to be out there for the Welcome Park music, flowers, and all of that. That's really neat to be able to be out there and visibly support the work that you do. So we appreciate y'all very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just want to know kind of what are the yardsticks? How do you spell success? One or two things. What is really at top on your agenda?
You mean kind of in the broadest sense? That when we have one goal, and it is to bring people to downtown. And every event doesn't, okay, like remember after we had COVID and we had the first food truck and what were there like, 5,000, 10,000. Okay, every event doesn't have to be that big. We want people to feel welcome in our downtown, whether you're eating at an expensive restaurant, whether you're just getting a slushie, whether you're just sitting on a park bench. We want people to feel welcome in downtown Perry and want to come back. Now, do we want you to spend money? Yeah, we'd love that. But we want children to grow up feeling welcome. That's why the flowers in the park that they can play. When they get grown, when these children today are grown, we want them to come back here, like some of us did that left and came back, because this place was welcoming to them. It was pretty, it was vital, and it gave them that feeling. Does that answer your question?
I can add a little bit of a data metric to that. Additionally, the things that I measure and report to the state, that's probably better. The things that I report to the state on a monthly basis that they are asking for include attendance numbers. So whether that is for a large event that's held like wine tasting, Dogwood, International Festival, but I also capture some of the numbers of things that our private businesses are hosting on their own. So those attendance numbers also include karaoke night, music bingo, the paint shops that Lush Art does. So we try to capture all of those attendance numbers, public and private investment, the number of businesses that opened or closed, the jobs that were created or lost based on those businesses that were opened or closed, and then as well as property value sales. So if a property is sold or transfers hands in the downtown district, we capture that number as well, because that's an investment number that someone has invested here in our downtown district.
That's very helpful. I was going to ask you about the data, so that's good to know. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions or comments, council? Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much.
Item 4C2 is the Technology and Entrepreneurship Advisory Board update. Ms. Wharton?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us this evening for these little board updates that the Economic Development Department wanted to bring before you. So for this board, the Technology and Entrepreneurship Advisory Board, this is probably the city's newest board that we've had established for just a couple of years now. It's very important to the city, and I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to come before you and let you know the good work that we have going on, what we're looking forward to, and especially hear from our board members. So tonight I have our Vice Chair, Dan Rhodes, with us. He'll come and do a little bit of the presentation. We also have another board member, Mr. Scott Ritchie, as well.
Mayor and Council, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate being able to come up here and say a few words. This board has been fantastic. So I can go back in history and talk about all the great things that we've done as well, but we're only the second one that exists so far that you and I could find in the United States. So you guys are very forward-leaning and making sure that we're looking at entrepreneurshipism in the community, and we're looking at technology and the things that we're trying to drive here to Perry. So what are the stuff that we're really focused on? Number one is Perry Startup Week. There we go. So this was absolutely a fantastic event. Every year that we have held this event, it has gotten larger and larger. What's great is that tells me that we're being consistent and that we're getting people here interested and looking at, okay, maybe I can start a business, so that we can then open some new businesses in the downtown area and bring them all across the whole community. Ultimately, that's what we're after. And additionally, one of the things that we're really looking at is the technology side of things. So what types of technologies would we need? What can we do as a community to be able to make sure that we're bringing those type of businesses into our community as well? Precision agriculture is a great example of that. Grand Farms and the things that they're doing down there, UGA and those type of technologies really drive to a lot of new capability that we're going to be seeing that's going to benefit all Georgias in the future. Additionally, we have Robbins Air Force Base right up the road. We need to make sure that we're building that workforce that they need as well. And what are the types of technologies that will be most impactful for them? How do you build that? Well, first you have to get community interested. You have to develop those people out. Certainly, Startup Week is one way to do that. Additionally, we also provide a program that we call Speaker Series. So we're bringing in folks to talk about artificial intelligence and an impact into your business. What is AI? Why is it important? Why should we be looking at that? Other types of technologies, robotics. We did one on precision agriculture as well. Did it over at the Ag Center. It was pretty cool. Go Fish Center, sorry. Yeah, so we're holding these type of events. Additionally, we're looking at the policies, procedures, and capabilities that us as a city would really benefit from as we're looking to the future, so that we can then come to you, to the council, and let you know, hey, we really should be doing this, that, or the other thing. We've got some stuff on the docket. I know Holly has been working very, very hard on that. Alicia has been a great help with all of this. So, thank you much for council and supporting us and making sure that we have the resources we need. But additionally, for providing the personnel to be able to get this done. It's been fantastic. Is there another slide? There we go. Absolutely. So we're going out to Grand Farms to go take a look at their spaces out there again. Absolutely love going and talking to them. I know personally I'm trying to get more and more involved in the Museum of Aviation as well. for the technology stuff that we're doing. Of course, the print material is fantastic. Inside Perry podcast, didn't Dr. Joe Richardson speak at that just recently? So I am here, obviously, on behalf of Dr. Joe Richardson, and so appreciate his support. He's been fantastic. And of course, speaker series, as I talked about, more info to come very soon. That's it? Okay. So mine's probably a little bit quicker, but there you go. Any questions for me?
Questions or comments? Thank you, sir. Appreciate the update.
Absolutely.
Item 4C is an update on the Downtown Development Authority. Ms. Wharton?
All right. All right, last but not least this evening is an update from our Downtown Development Authority. I have our chairman here, Mr. Curtis George. I think everyone knows Curtis. So just wanted to give a quick overview of some recent work that we've been doing. You know, Miss Valerie mentioned the flowers up at Welcome Park. That was a collaborative effort that the Downtown Development Authority was able to help them fund that project. So we're always happy to tag along and help Main Street work on some of those larger projects that they have. We have recently participated in the Economic Development Department's Jernigan Street Small Area Plan project, and will be a vital piece to that finished product coming soon. And then DDA is always working on making sure that we're casting a vision for what we see for downtown, especially on properties that the city may own. So there's a few key properties in downtown that are ripe for development. And so we want to make sure that we're casting a vision for what those should look like for what we want to see in our community. And then also, we're also looking to develop a list of some short, quick projects that we can work on, inexpensive, to help get some more beautification efforts taken care of, and just some smaller projects to get some momentum going. So looking ahead, continuing to work on those visioning plans and collaborating with Main Street. Particularly looking at alleyway lighting. So alleys are very important to us, and our DDA wants to make sure that we are looking at lighting in those to make them safe and more appealing. Also, we're going to be creating a little information booklet that we can share with property owners and business owners to let them know about the services and programs that DDA has to offer. And then also some DDA members are interested in doing a proactive meeting effort where they can go around, talk to business owners, property owners, get direct feedback from them, and then bring that back to us so that we can implement their ideas that they may want to see. So I'll ask Curtis if he has anything to add, but other than that, we can take any questions that anyone has.
Of course I do. Hello, thank you all for letting us be here. And Mr. Peterson, you asked a question, Main Street, about how do you measure success. And as a downtown entrepreneur and member of the Downtown Development Authority, one of the things that the three boards that were mentioned tonight are trying to do and have, I think, been successful at is bringing people to downtown Perry that may not have a reason to come here other than they're attracted by an event, whether it's the Dogwood Festival or Food Truck Friday or that entrepreneur workshop. Anytime you can bring somebody to downtown Perry who's never been here before, that increases the opportunity for our businesses to thrive. And downtown Perry is unique to the region. And the more people that we can bring into the downtown area, the more success our businesses will have, and the more success the city of Perry will have. And I applaud all three of these boards for bringing people into downtown Perry and showcasing our beautiful city. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Well said, Mr. George.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Thank you. We appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you.
Item 4D is the Perry Police Department. 4D1 is a request from the University of Georgia Extension Service to close Elko Road on May the 9th, 2026. Major?
Thank you, Mayor. My presentation is just a street closures, nothing impressive, but nothing like Mitchell or over there. I can't compare that, but so I bet you would. The 4-H, the University of Georgia Extension Agency, the Georgia 4-H, as y'all probably know best, is planning to host their State of Georgia modified shotgun trap match at the Georgia National Fair on May 9th, 2026. As y'all may remember, in the last couple years, they've had the local region one out there, but this year they're bringing the whole state in and doing it, looking at about 900 participants that are coming to this shotgun trap shoot. They're asking to have a Elko Road between Lime Rock Road and South Perry Parkway closed off that day from 8 to 5, and they are willing to pay the cost of 2 officers to maintain it, to make sure it's safe out there. I think they're just doing it as a precautionary. There's no pellets will be going as far as Elko Road is when they're trap shooting, but they're doing it as asking to close it as a precautionary, and the amount of participants we'll have out there, and they're willing to pay for it to have the officers there to maintain that closure.
Okay. So what is your detour plan? Are you going to take them into the fairground there at Lime Rock and take them out the backside, or?
Well, at this time, me and Chiefs talked briefly about it. You know, the ones coming off of Elko obviously will go left or right there at the Parkway Hay Road, and then the ones coming up Sam Nunn will probably have signage there directing them that the road is closed, and because since there's no houses up to that point where Lime Rock is, and just have them either they go Larry Walker or back towards Ball Street Extension on the Parkway.
Okay. Questions? This will take a vote, will it not, Mrs. Newby, tomorrow night? And so we'll bring that forward.
All right.
Appreciate it. And I understand the chief's concern of having 900 people with shotguns standing on Elko Road shooting. Yeah, I don't think many people would want to drive up there. So, but we're delighted to have them for that event here in Perry. I can tell you that.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
Item 4E is Public Works Department. 4E1 is the Heritage Oak Park rental agreement. Mr. Shoemate.
Mayor and Council, just bringing to you an update on the rental agreement we're looking for approval on. It updates it where we'll have 3 different tiers on the rental agreement. A tier 1 with small events, 1 to 150 people. A tier 2 with medium event, 150 to 300. Then a tier 3, a large event, which would be a 301 to 400, which would be our maximum. And in there it state if they have food vendors there requiring of roll-off dumpsters and an officer for every 75 attendants if they're not doing alcohol. If they have alcohol out there, it would drop that down to 50 attendants. And showing the maximum attendance 400 and maximum vehicles of 300. In each of those tiers, it would show how many public work staff would be needed on each tier. For example, on tier 1, we'd require 2 public work staff, then tier 2 would be 3, and tier 3 would be 4. And would each of these staff members be charged, it'd be $100 an hour on these events. And we would have to do an hour before the event and then 2 hours after each event. So if they have a 4-hour event, you'd be looking at a total of 7 hours at $100 an hour. And where we originally had an event deposit of $54 and $110, we just be one deposit with $500 for that, for those events. And the officer costs on that will be determined separately based on officer assignment. And that pretty much covers all the changes that would be done on this for y'all's approval.
Questions relative to the changes? Yes, ma'am.
For the alcohol component, is it if they're planning to have a vendor to serve alcohol, then that rate would apply, or if they anticipate participants are bringing their own coolers?
It'd be if participants are bringing coolers of alcohol.
Any alcohol,
Yes.
so not just a vendor serving alcohol.
Any
but
kind of alcohol
any-
that's going to be on the premises.
If any alcohol will be on the premises, then that applies.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect, thank you.
Other questions or concerns? All right, sir, we will put that on the agenda for a vote tomorrow to approve the changes.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate your work on that. Item 5 are council member items. Dr. Faust? Mr. Jones?
A couple of items, Mayor. I noticed on Perimeter Road today, there's a piece of asphalt right across from the housing authority that is very crooked and very, just bumps your car as you go over it. And I'm thinking as those subdivisions are built there and as motorcycles travel over that road, that might be a bit problematic. So I'd like for us to look into that and see if we can smooth that little piece out there. So that was the first thing I had. And the second thing I had is this might be a little preliminary, but as we're preparing for our comprehensive plan review and getting input from the public, a couple of things stood out to me on our future land use map that we have here. And I want to remind everyone, of course, that the future land use map is a guide. It's not set in stone or anything like that. But I noticed under the medium density category, which is the orange on the map, it includes R3, and R3 is our highest density, residential subdivision. So I'm just a little confused as to why R3 is therefore in medium density and not in high density. And I guess the concern or feedback that I get, and concern maybe that I have as we go forward with our comprehensive plan review, is the amount of orange, I guess, out in East Perry might lend itself to, that pack 'em and stack 'em cookie cutter type neighborhoods that I think we have kind of said we want to, maybe avoid or reconsider or look at. So my concern, just to bring up as we go forward in those discussions, is to maybe reevaluate the amount of orange here on this map. And that doesn't mean that I'm saying no R3 anywhere at all, but that's just a concern that I think is out there, and I want to give voice to that. And hopefully let that be a discussion point as we go forward. That's all I have.
Thank you. Dr. Auburn? No, sir. Mr. Moody?
Yes, sir. To echo Mr. Jones's concerns, I never really paid it much attention until he mentioned it. That is a lot of orange in East Perry. So R3 is the highest density. So maybe, and I'm glad that Mr. Jones, you brought that up for the public's benefit. This is, I guess I should say, preliminary future land use or potential. It is not cast in stone. We don't want it to appear that that's the type of housing that we want in East Perry. Thank you.
Okay. Well, based on that, I'd like to make a comment then. Just because it's orange doesn't mean it all has to be R3.
It does not.
And it's easier to say this is where we would prefer to see any R3 housing, but it doesn't mean we wouldn't want to see any R1 or R2s out there, whereas closer into the city, if it's already more restrictive, then that guides us to say, no, we would prefer not that to be high density. Am I correct in that? Just want to make sure.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, this is just if we had some, that's where we'd place it. Closer we get into the city, the less dense we want it to be. So, Reverend King. Okay. Mr. Smith, anything for us this evening?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Worthington?
Nothing further.
Okay. Ms. Newby, you have anything for us? Okay. Item 6 is our department heads. Ms. Wharton, anything additional? Mr. Duffy?
No, sir.
Mr. Coates?
Not tonight, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Chief?
Nothing tonight, sir.
Okay. All good? Mr. Shoemate? Ms. Clark? Ms. Warren, is there anything? Okay. On mayor items, I just again remind you that our meetings are open to the public, and we invite your interest and participation in those meetings. Our next meeting will be tomorrow night, here in this chamber, starting at 5 o'clock with our pre-council meeting, and at 6 o'clock we'll have our regular council meeting. And so we look forward to each and every one of you being here. There's no requirement for an executive session this evening. Is there anything else that needs to come before us this evening? Hearing nothing at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our work session.
So moved.
The motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. We do stand adjourned till 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Looking good.
I can put and chip, but I cannot, no big swings.